if you're getting into something, you got to feel it in here. I very rarely think you could be great at something if you're not feeling it in here. Rarely. And so I think you have to have that level of passion and purpose. And just because someone else is doing it, you can't assume that that's your path if you don't feel it in here. But if you have passion and purpose and you're embarking on something that you know feels right, sometimes we can't always script how long it's going to take.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to episode 33 of Playing the Inner Game. As ever, I'm your host, Michael Campion, and this is the podcast where we get to hear from exceptional thinkers, communicators, and leaders from all across the globe. Some of my guests have appeared on huge shows like The Tim Ferriss Show and include well-known entrepreneurs, Olympic gold medalists, Hollywood actors, artists, world-class creatives, and prominent chief executives. The aim is always the same: to learn from these exceptional performers and truly understand what drives them, what is special, what is unique about their lens on the world. What are the patterns, what are the principles that we can apply to our own lives to make ourselves healthier, wealthier, happier, and wiser. My guest this week ticks all of those boxes. He is built like a Greek god, he runs an ever-expanding health and fitness empire, is a loving family man, and possesses a rolodex that's the envy of most people in Hollywood. His list of clients, past and present, is frankly ridiculous. Hugh Jackman, Ryan Gosling, Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, Sebastian Stan, Jake Gyllenhaal, Emily Blunt, Cindy Crawford, and Hathaway. If there was one man that I wanted to have on the show in the first week of January, right when people are busy making New Year's resolutions, setting health and fitness goals, then it was the man who whips superheroes like Wolverine and Deadpool into shape. So I really lucked out on this one. More importantly, Don is a man who loves to help and just finds joy in serving others. He's a natural giver, not a taker, which is a large component of why he's enjoyed the success he has. The celeb clients, sure, they're a nice draw for the podcast, but they're really just an indicator from the marketplace that the man is good at what he does. He adds value. He really knows what he's talking about. More importantly, I know firsthand that the guy has a big heart. He's opened up his home to my family when he didn't need to, which speaks volumes to the kind of man he is. And anytime you come across someone with that blend of kindness, positivity, and discipline, I think there's always lessons worth unpacking. Don has graced the cover of Muscle and Fitness magazine. He is on the advisory board of Men's Health magazine. He has appeared in the media countless times on the likes of Cosmo, People, US Weekly, and The Today Show. He and I talk about the fundamentals of patience, of passion, of purpose, of consistency, and plenty of hard work. Lots of hard work, especially when COVID hit and threatened to take away everything he'd built over the last 20 years. Let's get into it, and I'll catch up with you on the other side. All right, mate. So Jenny told me that you'd probably get bored if I asked too many fitness-related questions, because I'm sure you get that stuff all the time.
I don't care. I don't care. Ask me whatever you want. Honestly, man.
Okay.
For me, it's just about having a cool conversation with good people. It's like whatever. I can answer the same thing over and over. It's fun.
Awesome, man. Awesome. But I think my audience would rip me to shreds if I had someone like yourself on the show and didn't at least extract a little bit of strength and conditioning wisdom. I don't think they'll let me hear the end of it. You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. All right. Okay, let's start with an easy one. What's the stupidest question that you keep getting asked as a personal trainer, as a fitness trainer?
Wow. The stupidest question I get asked as a probably... I never want to say anything's ever stupid. I just think people don't know, right? But when they turn around, the thought that like weightlifting is going to cause you to get big and bulky is just a complete misconception. I think what happens is there's all these additional factors that cause people to get big and bulky, and it's never the answer they want to hear. You're right? So it's like, oh well, I'm weight training, I'm getting big and bulky. Well, look at your sister, for instance. Like she was in there the other day moving like an obscene amount of weight for someone her size, and she's got a physique that most women would kill for, right? You know what I'm saying? Mostly all the women would kill for. So, but I think it's just that perfect example that when you do it with all these additional factors like alcohol and you're out partying and it just gets to a point where you'll get fleshy, you'll get big, you'll get bulky, call it what you want, but over and over it's that same question: is weight training going to get me big and bulky? And I'm like, well, it can, but you got to do these other things that a lot of people just don't want to do. And if you do those things, then I think you're going to create the physique that you're looking to create.
Yeah. I mean, if we can just kind of run the 80-20 principle over everything that you do, what are the 2 or 3 things that are really going to move the needle for someone who's trying to get in shape? If that's even possible.
Yeah, no, it is. I think when you take the lowest barrier of entry, the first few things that I look at, one is, and it's in no order, but I think when you look at hydration, right? Like you got to be hydrated. Like this is how we're going to detoxify our body. This is how we're going to help with recovery, energy levels. And it's nearly impossible to find an optimal level of health and wellness without hydration, right? Sleep quality, incredibly important, because I can put you on the best program that's ever been created if you're sleeping 3 hours a night. And if you're one of these people who think you only need 3 hours of sleep a night, which to me is like, it's just huge. I'm going to try not to curse on this podcast. It's a huge,
I'll try as well.
It's a huge joke to me to think that some doctor suddenly turns to you and is like, oh, you're one of the 0.001% that only needs 3 hours of sleep a night, right? Like sleep is imperative. It's overlooked. It's one of the best fat burning tools, and it's free. I'm going to steal that line from Paul Chek. And then after that, I think nutrition. I wouldn't consider it diet, but I would think nutrition, paying attention to the principles of food quality and making sure that we're getting in things that are from this earth, that are not always man-made, that are things that are healthy, and yes, we can get into make it much more complex by breaking down macronutrients and micronutrients. But like if you start paying attention to hydration, sleep, which I would categorize as your recovery category, and nutrition, just doing better, just start trying to eliminate some of the crap, right? Like the high fructose corn syrups, the processed foods, the sugars. You just start eliminating that. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to immediately move the needle. And we haven't even gotten into exercise. Like exercise, I almost feel like but think about exercise. I feel like it can be wrapped in a million different ways. Like if someone comes to me and they're like, I hate the gym. I'm like, okay, like let's get there without the gym then. Like, where's your environment? Where are you from? What are the things that you do? Like, let's try and wrap this in a way that we can put you on a path that you're going to feel like that you can be successful. And then, maybe as we were building confidence, maybe we mix in 10 minutes of resistance training there. It's like my favorite story. One of my favorite stories, and I've used this several times. I had a friend of mine. He became a very good friend of mine. He came in at first as a client. This was like 15 years ago. And he's like, I hate resistance training and I love the TRX. And I'm like, rolling my eyes, like, you love the suspension trainer. Like, oh, okay. Like, let's figure out like some good suspension trainer movements. So we start showing him some suspension trainer movements, and, we start building and developing his confidence. And then we start getting him doing some body weight exercises without the suspension trainer. And then finally one day he looked at me, it was like the magic words. He's like, well, what's next? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, show me some other stuff. I'm like, all right, we're going to have to get off of this then. He's like, yeah, I'm ready. And I was like, all right, so let's go. So I think that's the problem, is a lot of us will always dive into this, like, what's the best? And, it's just like, let's build some confidence. But obviously it took me about 10 minutes to answer your one simple question of the 3 things. So let's move on.
I enjoyed it. But it's more powerful when it comes from the client's mouth, right? As you said, you were waiting for those magic words and he said, what's next, right? You didn't force the issue. It's kind of,
we saw it with nutrition. Yeah. We see it with nutrition as well. It's like, am I going to turn around and hand my A plan to someone? No, I'm going to just get them doing better. Yeah. And I'm going to show them a level of progress while doing better. And that's like going into this New Year's, that's got to be the focus. Like for those of you out there who are like, oh, I'm going to eliminate this. Like, it's never worked for you. Like you can't eliminate stuff for life. Like if you like to have a drink once in a while, you're probably not going to eliminate it unless there's a problem there that I don't know about. But eliminating something, I think we can do it in moderation. And you don't have to like remove something. Like the idea is to improve. Like that should be everyone's goal. Like every single, I don't know a human being that's not going to turn around and say that they don't want to do better in some aspect.
Absolutely. I think I was listening to another interview of yours, and I really liked you're emphasizing the importance of just kind of doing one thing that moves the needle every single day. And those things compound, they build on top of one another. My sister, who you know quite well now, she has a lovely little saying. Instead of all or nothing, she says small or nothing, right? Small or nothing is actually the magic, right? That's cool. We can steal that from her. Yeah. How do you frame that importance or relative importance of consistency versus intensity? Because I think intensity gets over-indexed in our society.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you stole the words. It's words I've been using with my challengers over the last 26, 27 months since COVID, and it's been consistency over intensity. Because I've never seen a human being. I mean, even looking at myself, and your sister will attest to it. I'm pretty intense with this stuff. But I'm intense because I love it. It's how I've built my life, and it's how I've trained myself. But I've never met a human being that comes in with this 100% intensity. Like it's not possible, and it's not good. And that's why we're understanding now, like trackers, when you're looking at like readiness, and you're looking at things like aura, or like people are talking about Whoop, or there's much more accurate, like it's just like omega wave, phenomenal, right? Or aura, phenomenal. But we're measuring readiness. And what is readiness? Readiness is just telling us how recovered and prepared we are for activity. And then you can even get a little more granular with it and start saying, well, what activity should I be doing? Because when the word readiness started popping around about a decade ago, when people really started using it, it was, and it was that long ago, people were like, I've had tough training days. I have to shut down. I have to take off. It's like, well, maybe you don't. Like, maybe you just have to come in and focus more on skill rather than strength. Maybe it's not about going in and going all out. Maybe it's about going in and practicing and allowing the body to do a bit of an active recovery. So, yeah, I mean, it has all evolved. It's continuing to evolve, and it's fun to see the direction that it's going in. But this all or nothing, it's no one's ever gonna. No one. I mean, you see like Dwayne Johnson, like The Rock, who I've met a couple of times, a lovely person, but he's always like posting these like big motivational this stuff. Like, well, how many times is he waking up and he's like, oh, I feel like shit, or like how many times is he waking up and he's like, oh, my body's tired, or my shoulder or my knees are hurting me, or maybe that's why I use this piece of equipment because my body's hurting me a little bit. Like you can see it. Like you can see when someone. I'm not gonna single him, but I could tell when someone's training and moving just from video. Like I'm like, oh, I know why they're using that. Like they're having a problem with this. Like, no, it's so obvious. It just blurts out at you. But yet we want to come in with this message of like, go, 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 go. Like that whole Rocky, montage of him like climbing up the mountain in Russia and fighting Drago. And it's like, all right, well, show him in bed like the next 6 months, like feeling like complete crap. But it's consistency. If you can find a way to be consistent at some level, I don't care on a scale of 1 to 10. If it's a 10, I don't care if it's a 3. But if you get in there and be consistent, you're going to have these small wins day in and day out, and you're going to turn around. And I feel like you're going to be able to find this higher level.
Yeah, but I mean, there is we're going to dive real deep on semantics now. But there is a consistency to your intensity, as you say, every single day. From the outside, it appears you're coming with an unbelievable amount of energy. And because you said you love it, right? And when you love your work, you're passionate about it, it's easy for that to come out, right? It just comes spilling out of you. Where do you think that comes from? Where do you think that comes from? That drive, that desire to improve? Have you always been built that way? Is it something that's developed over the years?
I think I found that at a really young age. I think I had some things I was battling with when I was really young. I've talked about it several times. It's no secret, but it's like when I was in second grade and I had a stutter problem and I had a hearing problem, and then they put you in like this class of like outcasts. These guys ended up becoming my best friends to this day. But it's funny how something as a kid where you think it was so negative is just, and even looking back on it now, like, yeah, you think about it and it's like there's this part like you might get a little emotional, but in a good way, because I'm saying to myself, oh my God, I would never have gone back and changed that for a second.
Sure.
Like if I had the ability to go back and not have to have tubes put in my ears or not have to go to those classes and do extra help or do whatever I had to do to catch up, like I would never have taken that away from myself. Like that is 100% what groomed me to be an athlete. That's 100% what groomed me for that work ethic. And I think at a young age, like when you're feeling insignificant and then you go out one day on the field and you're able to do something because of work, and you come in and you're like, oh, you finished first place in second grade doing something, and you're sitting there going, oh, I could just do this by working harder. Oh, I like how this feels. That's a pretty cool formula. So when I go out and I run with everyone, I'm just going to run to the point where I'm like literally about to vomit in my own mouth, and like, but I'm just going to keep going. And then when you come in and you start ingraining that in your head at a young age, and you just realize that there's a level of that you can push and you get this outcome. To me, it's special. And it even got to the point, and you're going to say to yourself, well, you can't win every race, right? No, of course not. But yeah. I think it really became more about like this race within yourself. Like I didn't care about winning, really. I really didn't. I just cared about winning within myself. Like if I knew I was able to go out and do this effort and run. I remember one time in college at like 220 pounds, I ran like a 4-minute and 52-second mile. And it by far was the fastest mile time by anyone on our baseball team. Like it was baseball. But then when I was talking to some of the track guys, they were talking about doing that as like, 80%. I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my God, like I was like a near-death experience for me. I was able to do that, but it didn't matter. Like there was that level of pride that I have. And I even realized, I was like, if I ran against them and 5 guys finished before me, I wouldn't have felt like I was just happy I came in at that time. So I think it became this race within myself. And I think at a young age, when you start exposing yourself to that feeling, and you start exposing yourself to that way of mental training, it just grows and grows and grows. And then you talk about that like 10,000 hours thing to like create habit. Like we're way beyond that now, buddy. Like we're decades beyond that. And now it's like, yeah, I'm 44. I'm still setting PRs. I'm still going hard. I think about things a lot differently, right? Like now that intensity may become about yesterday when I shut off completely and I didn't do anything. I literally, for the first time in months, I laid on the couch with my family. We just watched TV and we ate, we relaxed. I feel amazing. So, to me, that's training also. That's that level of maturity and mental development to be able to turn around and be able to put myself in that situation so I can come back today and do what I have to do in a couple hours.
Exactly. I think that's very healthy. Being able to dial it in, dial it down is very much needed, right? When I'm, consulting or coaching someone, I'm always trying to bring 100% of my energy, right? You have to be very attentive, very present, and it is exhausting. It does deplete you, right? To give everything that you have over and over and over again. How do you find the ability to recover quickly from that? Because it is, you love it, and thus it gives you energy, it fuels you, but it also depletes you at the same time, if that makes sense. Being so present for someone, trying to give them everything that you have from your cup. How do you stop your own cup from depleting?
Well, I mean, it's the same answer. It's just one's more mental and one's more physical. But I've trained, like I figured this out probably a year or so ago. I've trained over 40,000 1-hour sessions in my life. Like that's just training people. That's not even talking about like mentoring that I'm doing or public speaking that I'm doing, or like the other day I gave a 3-hour webinar. Like I didn't stop, and I was like, I could have went for another 10 hours. Like it didn't matter. I just think that you get to a point in life when you train yourself to be in this environment over and over and over and over. You just develop this level of like resiliency, like toughness, like the ability to turn around and just come back and do it without getting tired. Like my head hits the pillow at night. Like sometimes I don't make it past 8 o'clock at night, but I just think because it's on, but I think it takes years of practice. I just think it's using that word practice. Yeah.
Agreed. If we can kind of go back one step in terms of, we do not get to choose the tools that shape us, and talking about, the troubles in second grade and feeling like a little bit of a misfit and an outcast. If we can pull on that thread in terms of we do not get to choose the tools that shape us, let's go back more recently to March 2020 and that moment in time. I think Cuomo comes out and says gyms are done. right?
You're good, man. Oh man, I'll tell you, you like do your homework. I love that. You're like one of the more prepared. It's pretty impressive. Pretty impressed. I'm impressed.
Thank you, sir. All right. So March 2020, I've done my prep. Cuomo comes out, says gyms are done. How has COVID been a forcing function for good when initially it seemed like all hell was going to break loose? Surely, what's going through your head at that moment in time?
You know, it's funny. You just reminded me of when I opened my first club, and I don't know if there's this level of being just naive, confidence. I don't know. Maybe it's my faith. Maybe it's just the fact that over years I've been trying to tell myself, no matter what happens, you're going to be all right. Right? It's like this whole. It's just this like 50 years. Like we're all gone. Like we're not like we're all gone. Like our tombstone's not going to tell people what was in our bank account. It's like what type of good did we do for people? And I think the only comforting thing is we're all in the same boat, right? Like we're all in this situation where people are out of work. It's like you're in this survival mode. And I remember my wife and I aren't sitting there going, how are we going to pay our bills? We just realized that there was something in front of us that we had to attack. It felt right, and we did it. And we did. And it was like when people are talking about Netflix and watching movies, I can't even begin to tell you how much I worked throughout COVID. I mean, my days were starting. I mean, they start at the same time, 5, 6.
It's early anyway. Yeah.
It's early. But we were shooting content till 9 p.m. Yeah. I mean, literally think about that. And I was working out. I was training live. I was doing lives probably 3 to 5 sessions a day. I think in like a 30-day period of time, I think we counted, I had to train like literally live workout, like real time. Probably in that 30 days, I think we were between 100 and 150 workouts in a 30-day span. Because we had, because you know what? It was like, are we going to capitalize on this? Are we going to give back? Are we going to try and put ourselves into a better situation? And when I launched this 1 month program for free, every publication is like, could you give us an ab workout, a bicep workout? I'm like, I'll give you 4 weeks videoed. I videoed every exercise. It's gift wrapped in a program for you already. And I progress it every 2 weeks. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, just here's the workout. And they're like, why would you give this away? You could sell this. This is probably your livelihood. I'm like, we're not selling anything.
They were waiting for the hook, right? They're waiting for the hook.
Yeah, they're waiting for the hook. Yeah. I'm like,
that's free, man.
The only hook was they had to sign up on my website. So I was able to collect emails. I was able now to connect with people who I think in the future wanted my services. So yeah, it was this relentless sprint of like, put your head down and go. And I'm listening to other people who are just sitting on the couch, and like my wife's off in there. She worked for a cancer foundation. She literally probably took hundreds of hours of webinars on marketing. And we just literally combined my 24 years of training experience and digital experience that I had with her within like 2 months, becoming literally an online marketing expert. Like she literally just sat there and watched and took tutorials and hired people and just literally decided to put together this back end. Now it's 2 years later and it's going pretty strong.
Amazing. Just to paint a bit of context for people who don't know your background, you'd spent 15 years building a brick and mortar gym, very successful gym in New York City, right?
Two of them.
So 2 of them. And if I have my facts correct, the lease, that 15-year lease, just spun off in the middle of 2020. So it was somewhat serendipitous, I guess, but very, very scary at the same time. Yeah.
Good timing. I mean, it was fascinating because I got incredibly lucky. I mean, 15-year lease expires May 31st of 2020 when Cuomo told us that we had to put, the business on hold. All gyms on hold in March. It was March 16th. Was that first month? Was that first Monday where I was like, okay, we're not going back into the city.
Yeah.
And then what we did was we paid the landlord out. He was like, well, can you get your stuff out if you're not going to resign? We're like, well, we want to try and renegotiate this lease. And he's like, okay. So we spend the next few months renegotiating the lease. So we had to leave our equipment in there from March to like September. Couldn't even go use it. But we couldn't bring trucks in. It was like, it's not deemed essential. Like by law, like we can't bring trucks in. So he's trying to charge us rent. And I'm like, I'm not paying rent. He's like, oh, we'll throw you out. I'm like, you can't throw me out.
You can't throw me out either.
You can't throw me out either. So it's actually a fun place to be in. But then when this is what was fascinating. So September, I pay him in full for March, April, and May. In May, I think around May, he was paid out $180,000. That's how much it was. I'll never forget the number. And he was like, "That's very noble of you." I said, "Thank you." And we end up starting to try and negotiate this lease. And then September rolls around, and the governor now announces that we can reopen, but at 33% capacity. And I'm like, this isn't happening. Like, you can't.
You can't.
I'm in a specialty business also. Like, I'm not running a New York sport club. I'm running a gym that generates probably 5 times more per member on their monthly spend than say an Equinox. Like, we are a premium model. This is maybe 400 active members, and you might see 100 people a day in there. It was a big facility. It was very beautiful. And I said, listen, this isn't going to work out for us. I said, we've been in bed with you for 15 years. We like to think that we close out the right way. But we need to renegotiate this. He's like, well, what do you have in mind? And I said, all right, well, that's a conversation that we already thought about. I said, we're going to have to do a rev split because we just don't know. So our numbers. We've showed you our numbers because we have had problems in the past, and we have talked to you about it to show you that we're not bluffing. So we showed them tax returns, et cetera. And we basically just says it's going to have to be a rev split off of our net profits, like off of our net profits. Otherwise, we can't. We have all these other expenses. And he lost his mind. I mean, he literally, I've never in my life heard a grown man on the phone literally like he had a bottle in his hand. He was screaming and kicking. And it's actually, thinking about it now, it was quite funny. But he basically is like, "Oh, I'll think about it in 24 hours." And we had trucks come in, I think, within a week to move stuff out. And then he serves us with an $80,000 note lawsuit saying that he wanted specific damages. I mean, it's laughable what he even asked for. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But I think after going through that, I realized right there, listen, everyone's got to worry about themselves, right? Like, this is cutthroat right now. Like, we're in this world where you've got to pay your bills, and you've got, lenders. And I understand. I'm sympathetic to what he's going through. I just don't want to be in bed with that. This is not my first rodeo. I'm not going in. I'm not an Equinox trainer right now who's getting started, who has to build his book, who has to prove himself. Like, I'm not there in my business. Like, I'm partners in probably close to 10 companies right now. Like, I'm part of their digital growth. I'm part of their strategy. I have a family. I have a home. Like, I'm not going to put myself into a situation again where I have to deal with that. And it was a level of freedom that I received from exiting something that I thought was going to be incredibly difficult. Like, when you put so much time and energy into something, and you think one day, well, if that's gone, what's going to happen? Honestly, like, the only thing I was concerned about was my employees. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Otherwise, it was a great stepping stone for me, and time to move on.
Yeah. I mean, you're sitting in the barn, right? You're sitting in the barn, described as the best home gym that man could ever dream of. And it's fun, right? You basically crafted the ideal working and living situation, I think, because it's there on your property, right in a beautiful part of New York. And you've cut out that commute going into the city. You've cut out the overheads, obviously, of having that prime real estate downtown. Again, you've managed to create this ideal living situation, but this isn't something that was planned. It just emerged, right? It emerged from the situation. How much are you enjoying the switch now to being a almost fully, digital business? Not fully, but close to. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's literally a dream come true. After being in a facility that I built from the ground up for 15 years and fell in love with, there were a lot of holes in it. There were things that I just, like, if you wanted to create a perfect environment, right? Like you say, and we've all done this, like, what would be perfect? If I was to create a perfect environment for me now, it's where I am. But again, like, there's a level of risk. Like, you're never going to turn around and I feel like put yourself in a much better situation without, throwing the chips in. And it was, listen, this is a huge cost. I mean, you didn't even get the full tour, but like this is just the first floor. So like if we see the background, like I created about 1,000 square feet here, and then I have the same size floor downstairs, which is where all my heavy equipment is, and it's a lot of fun. But again, a big cost. But why? People would say, well, why? Like, what are you training people out there? Like, I don't train people out here. Like I create content. I do things like I did with your sister. I do I collaborate. I have this home that's become somewhat of a focal point for companies to come in and shoot with me. I mean, just the last month and a half alone, I can't tell you how many companies have come in here and have shot content with me. So, it's something that's fun, and we're going to continue to grow and build from.
Yeah, it's amazing. If I've done my prep correctly, you did attempt to go digital in 2010. Is that right? Was there an attempt? Yeah. So what are maybe some of the lessons learned from trying it in 2010 and then going at it again in 2020, 21? Obviously, your wife Mel was tremendously helpful as well. What do you think have been some of the most important things that you learned from that?
Can
of course, we're not live. We're not live.
1 second. I'm sorry. Someone's at my door. Hi, how can I help you?
I want to know. I just delivered your food, but I have a house upstate. I want to know, can I take a picture of the front of this?
The picture of the front of this?
Yeah,
sure. Go right ahead.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. I don't know what that is.
There you go. You're on the tourist trail. You're a photo stop now.
I think it's so weird. She shows up to my house. I thought she was delivering DoorDash.
That's what I thought. But then
let's continue. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't see her, but she sounded non-threatening. I think you could have taken her.
No, I think it's fine.
So maybe what are some of the lessons that you learned from trying to go digital in 2010 and then doing it again in the last year or two? What are the few things that you think have been really effective?
Yeah, I mean, when I started Driven Apps, it was actually, I mean, even to this day, thinking about it, you're like, what a great idea. It's like, this is right when the app business was starting out. And through my contacts, I was able to get in touch with some athletes. So Adrian Peterson just won an NFL MVP, and Dwayne Wade was just about to win an NBA championship, and then Hall of Fame golfer Ernie Els. And I wanted to create these apps that were best in class. It was a place where, globally people can go to, and it was almost kind of like an MTV Cribs to like check out their training and their nutrition and build up this entire element. Kind of somewhat of I wanted to grow it into like a lifestyle app, like where you could tie in shopping, like where and bringing their sponsors in, and even looking into it this day, like it is somewhat of a cool idea, right? Like, but we were the ones to create that back in 10. And the problem with it was, it was an enormous success out of the gate. Like 2 of the apps went to #1 in the App Store for weeks, and we were literally, I felt like we were printing money.
Awesome.
And it was awesome. But then, like at a certain point, you just see this level of like flattening out, and then you're saying to yourself, like, well, how are you going to sustain this, right? It's like, how are you gonna keep up this level of sales? That's what business is, and you just couldn't, unless you had the participation of the athlete to where they were able to deliver more and more content. And that's where, like, I mean, in a way, that's kind of where like we knew the value, but the agents didn't really know the value. And I never like to blame anyone, but like, I almost felt like if you were sitting with a group of people that were able to talk and actually think about what is the long-term approach here? Like, what are we trying to do? I think this collaborative level could have kind of kicked in to where, both teams were talking about, all right, we're going to have to come in and we're going to have to kind of, spice up the content every year. Right. But what it was like, all right, we're going to do this deal, and so-and-so wants X amount of dollars, and we need X amount of equity, and you agree on all these deals, but then they're coming in and we're only giving you 5 hours. And you're kind of like, all right. And you roll the dice and you go with it because no one else was really doing it at the time. Yeah. Right. And we didn't even truly know, I mean, you never know what's going to work, but right when the content came out, we're like, oh, this is going to kill it. There's billions of people in this world, and this is going to do great. And it actually sold a lot, but then you weren't able to sustain that level of sales without bringing something new to the table. And that's where that level, that word engagement comes in, right? It really came down to that. And that taught me a huge lesson. It also taught me about the celebrity piece, because I've worked with celebrities for 15, 20 years in this business. I've probably coached more celebrities than almost any trainer on the planet. There's a few of us, and we all know each other's names. And, it's like, them, there's a couple other names out west that might have, worked with more, but the celebrity, does it matter? And I think after going through that, I realized at a young age that it doesn't matter. Right. It doesn't make it. You can sign, and I hear it all the time. Brands come up with we signed so-and-so and this one and that one. I'm rolling my eyes in my back of my head. What does that matter? It doesn't matter. What are they going to do for you? Oh, they'll do an occasional post. I'm it's irrelevant. What'd you pay them? Well, we had to pay them X. I'm all right, well, that's a total waste of money. Or no, they just want free. They just want free product, and you're oh, okay. They're going to talk about it for free product. That's a little bit of a better business model, what most of them don't want to do. But that celebrity piece of it doesn't guarantee anything. And who recently it's a reminder. And I've been working with him for 12 years. But you talk about Ryan Reynolds, who's Blake Lively's husband, who Blake works with myself and your sister. That's why we're all here, obviously. But Ryan went in, and Ryan's partners in he started a company called Aviation Gym. Ryan was a part of the company. His
he's
deal
incredibly hands-on. Yeah,
he's incredibly hands-on. His deal wasn't to turn around and receive equity. He bought into the company. He was on he was on phone calls on Tuesday nights with liquor distributors. You're Ryan Reynolds, why is he doing this? That was part of his game plan. And that's part of why I believe, not why I think, why I know he was able to build that company up so quickly, and to where now it's become a massive success, because he is a part of it. So when I hear these deals, or I have a lot of times brands are calling me up, how should we structure this deal? Or I know this one and they want to get my 2 cents on it. Very rare is a celebrity going to come in and actually, it's not their day job, right? Ryan treated this as if it was his day job, and that's why it became a success.
No, they need to absolutely love it, right? He was emotionally invested, financially invested. He was invested from every angle, and that's why it worked. His personality, his humor is all over that brand, right? Everything that Aviation Gym does, his DNA is all over it, which is why it worked. So that celebrity, that kind of celebrity trainer moniker that you have, it always comes, with the prefix kind of Don Saladino, trainer to the stars, Don Saladino, celeb trainer. Does it annoy you now? Clearly you're grateful, but is it somewhat limiting? Because it's, I
don't know. I don't, does it, I'm very, first off, I'm incredibly grateful for the people that I know you are. With.
I know.
Yeah. And they have when taking Blake and Ryan, for instance, they've helped me out in so many ways. One, from their friendship and love, but two, to just, even through the pandemic, talking about ideas and giving me perspective on certain things and helping me with digital media, and just they're amazing human beings. I think the celebrity thing in the beginning, I almost think probably devalued what I did a bit, right? Because I do come from this strength and conditioning world where I have been really into the educational piece of all this, and kind of a community that I roll with. They're more of these strength and conditioning coaches, I guess a little bit more sciencey nerds, et cetera. But then I also kind of love this bodybuilding community where, I have a lot of friends that compete on the stage, et cetera. So I've kind of lived in the middle. And I think in the beginning, I tried fighting it when people would refer to me as a celebrity coach. And after a while, I'm all right. Then people started referring to me as, Don's a celebrity coach. Don's a celebrity coach that kind of he kind of wears both hats, and he's actually, legitimizes the name a bit. And that to me was a big compliment. And then I finally got to the point where I was just man, this is, you can't fight the label sometimes, and you just got to go with it. And it's given me so much. So I'm actually very grateful for it now.
Yeah. Awesome. And what do you find when training kind of these celebs, training the stars versus training kind of your average man or woman on the street? Clearly you've got so many people signed up to do your challenges online. What are some of the kind of commonalities between? What are some of the differences between training your, celebs versus your athletes versus your?
It's very similar. I actually think that training, the comparison I would get, people would ask me, well, training athletes are harder, right? And I'm like, no, it's easier. And they would actually get mad. Like strength coaches would get a lot. They get really bothered by it because like a strength coach is like, oh, I'm a trainer pro athlete. Like these are the best athletes in the world. So this has got to be the hardest. Like, no, they're so athletically gifted and
they're so driven already, right?
So yeah, a lot at that sport, maybe not always in the end, maybe not
in the gym,
right. But they've got this level of movement, and I think at that point, it's like developing this level of resiliency. Like when I work with an athlete in the beginning, maybe ego is like, all right, can we get them hitting a golf ball further, right? Like because I worked with a lot of golfers also, and after a while, it's like, well, can I get them to make it through this 10-month season without getting sick once, or like. Just like imagine like it became about this level of resiliency. Like, did I really care if tour player Morgan Hoffman was hitting the golf ball 320 yards or 325 yards? Like, yeah, it probably doesn't really matter, right? Even though everyone's so like fixed on that. Like my goal really became more about resiliency. But the thing that people don't think about is one, like, well, first off, we're all human. We're all the same. We're all made up of tissue and bone and muscle and cells. And so it's not really going to change there, right? But like where it does change, I think, is the schedule. And I find one of the most difficult schedules, and people are going to be like, no way, this is nonsense. I think the celebrity has one of the most difficult schedules. So let's put aside the fact that all of the ones that I work with, pretty much 99% of the celebs I work with have families, right? So when you got to take a celebrity and throw them on a plane and fly them to a different time zone and pull them away from their family, and then they have to go on sets, which are grueling. Listen, these companies are trying to do things as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So you're not sitting there working 4-hour days. Like you're in there 16, 17 hours a day. Oh, and then what happens when like a camera breaks down or if so-and-so gets sick and they have to leave and then everything gets changed around. The schedule is just, it's grueling and it's incredibly stressful because of the fact that they got to be away from their family in a different area, in a different time zone. And they're trying to balance it all out. Like now they're trying to throw training on top of it. Right. So now they not only have to be in at work at 5 and maybe they're not getting off till 11 PM, but when are they going to work out? Because they need that, right, for the role. Like they need that for their survival physically and mentally. So for me, it's like the athlete, I never want to take anything away. Oh, and then putting on the fact that most of the celebs I'm doing are performing a level of their own stunts, right? Which most people aren't really, talking about that much. So, when I don't want to devalue the athlete, but the athlete, listen, we know what games the Yankees are playing next year. We know Tom Brady's schedule next year. Like I don't work with any of those people, by the way, but we know what the schedule is where they can prepare, I think, a lot better. Whereas we're sitting there and we're doing a charity run for Equity Designs the other day. And I have a client that I'm running up the Empire State Building with, Sebastian Stan. And, his shoot's running late, right? And COVID's going on and all this stuff and all these variables. And then, these things start getting thrown out at him last minute, which are just, oh, we have to be in early. Like the call time, you don't know, like their call times. I'm working with Annie Hathaway right now. Like her call times, it's like 9 PM. We're talking about like, oh, I got to be in at 5 tomorrow. Like, can we go later in the day? I'm like, okay. Right. Like that's tough when you have to make decisions like that on the fly and you're trying to balance that out with your family, which is always, it's always your number one priority, right? It should be. That becomes very, very, very difficult. It's very difficult in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, let's double click on that a little bit because I think you and I are built similarly that way in terms of the importance and primacy of family. Not everyone would be able to work alongside their wife or husband or partner like you do. So how valuable has Mel been to your success? How valuable do you think choosing the right partner is to kind of 10xing your career success?
I mean, yeah. I couldn't have done this without her. I mean, I built up the brick and mortar business, and I built up my name from a training standpoint and my educational piece, and I had to do that on my own, right? She wasn't there to help with that. But if I had her, it would have been 10 times better early on. Like I already know that because of what she did when we started working together in the pandemic. And I knew it too, because she's one of the smartest women that I know. She's one of the smartest people that I know. So for her to be able to come in with this level of work ethic and execution and just be able to like stomp her foot on the gas and just be like, all right, we're going to take this car that was once going 100 miles an hour. We're going to figure out a way to make it go 200 miles an hour. And she did it pretty quickly. So for me, that was really fun to see. Where does the challenge become? I think the only time I think we drive each other a bit nuts is like on filming. Like she'll come in with this whole sheet and then suddenly like on this horse that starts getting whipped. She's like, and I'm like, hold on. And I'll start yelling back at her. And like, that's the only time I think we really get frustrated with each other is when we have to start doing this filming thing. She'll be like, all right, you have to. I'm like, you're giving me no information right now. You have to give me more information. It actually becomes a joke, but you know, she's so upbeat and she's incredible. And we're just getting started with this thing. And yeah, you know what? I'm proud to say that we have 10x this over the last several years since, you know, what I was building in a 15-year business. Yeah, we were able to go do that. And you know, I want to, you know, we want to continue to build it. That's part of building a business. It's part of fun. It's part of that. Like there's nothing wrong with turning around and saying that you want to climb and grab more success, you know, especially if you're trying to do the right thing with it. Right. And we are. So yeah, our goal is to continue to build this thing and you know, enjoy our family and build this life together. We have a vacation next week. We're going away for the kids and we're shutting down for a week and we're just going to focus on them and enjoy them. We're going to Vail, Colorado.
Oh, dude. Snowboarding?
So yes.
Yeah.
So we're like, we love it. It's like the one activity that the four of us are like on the same page with and we love. So we get up there together and we'll just rip for a week. So yeah, I mean, her, it's been so invaluable. And I'm the first to tell you that, yeah, like what I do is important, but we're not doing what we're doing now without her.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, I think snowboarding as well, just to double click on that, snowboarding is my happy place as well. And I think, especially, you know, in our work lives, we're not obsessed with it. We know what's important, but it's always about attainment. And snowboarding for me is about attunement, right? That attunement versus attainment dichotomy is interesting. And snowboarding is one of the few activities where I can just be present, right? Because you're just trying not to die, right? If you're on a challenging slope and you can be fully present. And I find it's a nice way of clearly you're in a beautiful place. You're in nature. I find it very peaceful in the mountains. But what does it maybe do for you guys as a family? Do you think about that attunement versus attainment?
100%. I mean, first off, it's connection. Something as simple as like us being on the lift together. Like we have our little mountain playlist, and we put it on, and we listen to music on the chairlift up, and just, I mean, it's everything about it. It's breakfast before we go out. It's you know, checking out the conditions. It's just watching my family, just riding with my family and enjoying it. I mean, even like during COVID, we used to sit in bed and watch these YouTube videos on different locations, and we would just, the four of us would lay in bed together and we would just kind of imagine where do we want to go or where do we want to do. And I know our number one bucket list place right now is it's actually in Japan. Okay, it's this place called Hakuba.
Yes, and I know.
And so we're gonna go. Have you been?
I haven't. A lot of my friends have. A lot of people in Hong Kong. It's a popular one. I've got some friends with chalets there. So let me know when you're going.
Would love to. Yeah. So we want to. So I promised them before college, which they're now. My daughter's in 9th grade. My son's in 7th. So we got a few years to prep for it. But we're going to do a big trip over there and hopefully blow it out. Yeah.
Yeah, the powder's ridiculous. I need to get myself there and not just see friends.
We'll meet you there. Come meet us. Come meet us when we end up going. We'll go do that. Yeah. 100%.
If I ever get out of this gilded cage that is Hong Kong, I will see you there. They're not letting us
fly
it's
incredible. Anywhere. Yeah, that's what I heard. But I hear Hong Kong's and I hear it's incredible.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place. It has to be because we're not allowed to leave. But eventually they'll let us out.
Unbelievable.
Let's maybe start moving towards some of the kind of principle-based questions that I always like to go on with guests. If you can if you can reduce it, so what's the one most important principle that runs through everything you do? What's the common thread?
There's a line that my grandfather used to give me. And I used to roll my eyes to it when I was 13 years old. He'd say, "My son, you have to run scared. You have to try harder." And then there was a line part. There was one more addition to it where he said, "And there's no room for complacency." And I think that no matter what you're doing, if you're an athlete, if you're an actor, if you're building a business, if you're a trainer, I see this level of complacency stick in with people. They begin to relax and say, "I'm doing great," and then they'll turn around a year or two later, and I think they ask why. Why was I not able to hold that level of success? And I think with complacency, when people are complacent, this lack of evolution, this willingness, to like evolve, gets diminished, and I think that's a problem. And listen, if you found a level of success and you're happy doing what you're doing, like there's nothing better when I talk to someone that like, "I'm doing my dream job. How are your hours? I love them. I love where I live. I love what I'm doing. I love my family." I'm like, "Dude, like you're unbelievable." Like I know people who are making, 8 figures a year, 9 figures a year that are miserable. Like if you're this content with what you're doing, like in my opinion, I think you found this level of success, and then it's finding out a way, how do you just maintain that for your life, right? But I think this level of complacency that sits in on people, I think that is kind of something that I've always been afraid, not afraid of, but just I've always been very aware of.
Yeah, wanting to guard against, for sure. Is there anything else that maybe your grandfather or someone else has said that's particularly stuck with you over the years? Maybe a mentor, a family member? What sticks? I
think when I got into business, I was probably one of the most impatient human beings. Like just like I move very fast. So I think even when it was like going down or waiting for people to go out, like you're always like on your toes when I was a really young kid. Like, all right, let's go. And I think I've developed this level of patience now. I mean, even my home, like where we're renovating our kitchen, it's a blessing. It's taken 10 months for them to renovate a kitchen. Like you think about that, like, this is a kitchen. Like, give me a break. Like I'm more like, well, it's going to get done, and we're very blessed to be able to do this. And by the time it's over, we're going to have the kitchen that we've always wanted because we're doing everything. Fortunately, we can do everything that we wanted to it. So, but if there was, if this was 15 years ago, maybe I'm getting more vocal. Maybe I'm stressing myself out. Maybe I'm yelling. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I feel like I was a child 15 years ago, right? So things change. So I think developing this level of patience with no matter what you do, I think it gets very easy nowadays to, no matter what you're doing, to start comparing yourself to other people on social media and start, looking at, the best angles and the best side, profile or whatever it might be, and say to yourself, I want to be there. How do they do that, etc. And you just gotta be patient with what your game plan is. Like I didn't expect 24 years later for my career to have gone the way that it's gone. And if you turn to me 24 years ago and said, this is the way it's going to go, I'm going to be like, if I knew this was the end goal, I'd be like, oh my God, that's exciting. And that's amazing. And what, social media? Like, what is it? Explain to me the social
Explain
media.
This to me.
Because it didn't exist. Like when I got into training, we had StarTAC phones. We didn't have text messaging. Like we didn't even know what that was. I had a phone in my car that had like a big cord connected to it. So things have changed, but I think it's just this level of patience. I think you got to have passion and purpose for what you're doing. If you're getting into something, you got to feel it in here. I very rarely think you could be great at something if you're not feeling it in here. Rarely. And so I think you have to have that level of passion and purpose. And just because someone else is doing it, you can't assume that that's your path if you don't feel it in here. But if you have passion and purpose and you're embarking on something that feels right, sometimes it may take a little extra time to lose that last 5 pounds of body fat, or put on that last 5 pounds of muscle. Like sometimes we can't always script how long it's going to take. Sometimes COVID hits and you're working out of your house for 18 months. Like you can't plan for certain things. Those would be my 3, like passion, purpose being one, patience, and then that complacency. And I really feel like if you kind of had that and you threw that into one hat and you just focused on those things, I feel like a lot. And if you want to throw something really simple on top of it, it's just like, once you have that formula locked down, then just work your ass off. Yeah. It's like, just go now. Like hard work. Like I still love those words.
Yeah.
Like it's just, they still make it's still very, it's very visual in my book. It's very visual with what I do every day. Like there's this level of work ethic that I believe that we have to have.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I've never seen a successful person who didn't have tempo. So my word is tempo, right? The way that hard work kind of just gets you. When I hear the word tempo, I'm like, yes, because I see people just impatience, that impatience that's healthy, but then patience with results. So it's kind of impatient with actions, but patience with results.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Micro speed, macro patience. That's something that that's a needle that you've threaded really, really well.
I like that though. I like that tempo. I like that. That's a name that we use a lot in golf.
Yes, I love golf as well.
Having that, and it's just like, it makes sense. It's definitely applicable.
Yeah. And I also want to just talk a little bit more about the social media element, because I do think it's important. It's very easy to get stuck in that comparison game. And how have you thought about kind of social media, vanity metrics, and versus what actually moves the needle for your business, and how difficult it is to kind of focus on your own race, right, rather than looking at what other people are doing?
I don't think I have much time to look at. I try and keep my eyes open to friends and people in the industry that I respect, because I learn a lot from them. And it's always interesting when you see someone with a high level of success, like even if your views don't align, or even if you're like, oh, I don't really like what he's doing. I find it interesting to why they're successful, and kind of assessing that as well. So it doesn't always have to be someone who like completely aligns with the viewpoints that you have. I'll never forget, I think it was like 8 years ago, I was speaking up in Rhode Island, and I brought a couple of coaches up there that worked for me at the time. And they were all these people were piling into a room, and my coaches were leaving. And I'm like, where are you going? And they're like, oh, this guy's a clown. I'm like, he's a clown? Like, why do you think he's a clown? He's like, oh, I don't know. Like his training's nuts and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, he's got 600 people in the room, so let's all go in and listen to him, show him some respect, and then let's talk about it afterwards. And then afterwards, it came down to that he had this level of engagement. He had this level of like attraction where he was so good at talking. His coaching's great. Like maybe some of his training stuff gets a little crazy, but it was a big learning lesson for my guys. So, I think that social media piece, sometimes we can, if we're on it every day, I think that's toxic. I think that could be, even if you're enjoying it, it's like, get about your day. Like you got to work, you got to, don't get complacent here. Again, it's using that word, but I think even with me, it's this balance. Like, what is social media for me? It's not an opportunity for me to try and show off things that I'm proud of. No, it's social media for me. It's 99% education. Like if you go to my social media, I'm either trying to educate people on movements or nutrition or recovery, or maybe just a better way to do things, or a safer way. Maybe it's motivation. Maybe it's product that I really like, because the companies I work with, like I only work with the company if I use the product day in and day out. So maybe it's, so there's always that educational element. So for me, like the plan is very simple with social media. Like the pillars are all laid out. Like, and then once in a while I'll throw some family stuff in, because it's my family, and it's still, it's a very important element for me also, is showing people that, hey, listen, like this is not all, I'm not a robot. Like this is about, this is what's most important to me.
Yeah, for sure. I think coming from that place of sharing education and from a place of generosity is probably the right approach, right? As you said, giving all that stuff out for free during the pandemic when other people thought you should be charging for it has repaid you in buckets, right? Over and over again.
It's been great. And listen, I love helping. I mean, obviously there's only so much time that we have in the day, and you can't, if I was sitting there fielding every question that came in, I wouldn't be able to get any work done. So sometimes it's tough. Like you can't always respond to people, or you just can't do it. But all in all, I just, you got to just try and do the right thing and learn from your mistakes. And there's plenty of them I made when I was younger, and you evolve as you get older, and you learn and you move on, and you can't change the past. You got to just go on and focus on the future, I guess.
Yeah. I know I'm conscious of the clock, but I don't want to let you go without asking this. You're
Sure.
someone who gets interviewed all the time, right? You speak a lot on stage. What's something that you've spent a lot of time thinking about that no one ever asks you about?
Wow. Something I get asked about that I've been thinking about that no one asks me about.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you wish they would.
Oh, I don't know if I would say I wish that they would. There's just, I think there's this whole like life, and there's this whole side of me that people maybe don't know because I don't really talk about it a lot. So, there's just all these things that I used to do that people don't know, but that's all personal stuff. But it's all fun stuff. It's nothing like that they're going to become a better person learning about me. But like I was a very competitive, good collegiate baseball player, and I grew up, and that was my fitness. That's what I thought I was going to be doing, and getting picked up to play over in Europe and then not going, and I was a very competitive, like slalom skier on the water at one point in my life. I love that. And I haven't done that in years. Would love to get back into that one day. It's like little things that are fun. I think they're just more fun, facts. Like I grew up working in a catering hall for close to 10 years. And I think that is probably combined with, what I went through in second grade, that just popped up. That's probably where I got a lot of that work ethic from. Because I was, I worked in a job. They called us prefabs. And we would get the room ready. So if a 300-person wedding was ending, they would have to maybe get a 250-person bar mitzvah. That night you would have like a 15-minute time span that they called house turn, where they converted all the rooms from the old parties to new parties. I was in there. I was in there at like 10 years old sweeping, and I was so small, they were putting me up on the rafters on ladders, which I can't even believe now. They actually allowed me to do this. I was pointing the lights on tables, and like there was this whole element of the restaurant business that I was exposed to for almost a decade at such a young age. And I go into work some days at 10 a.m. at 15 years old. I wouldn't leave till 3 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
I mean,
this
that's
was before
insane.
health and safety regs, right?
Oh my God, 100%.
Good old days.
I worked with my father, and they weren't easy on me. So that's a chapter of my life I almost feel like I could do a whole story on, because I think it was just so interesting to see what I see. But the environment I was exposed to is one of the things that I attribute to me being really good at customer service.
Yeah.
Why I was really good in customer service.
No, I'm sure it also helped you understand the value of a dollar, right? And the value of working hard.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. Before I let you go, Don, one simple habit that's yielded disproportionately large benefits for you. It doesn't have to be fitness related. Could be, a mental hack, something you live by.
Habit. I think it's this level. I think it's this level of, you call it a habit. I mean, it's this level of consistency. It's just applying that word consistency to everything you do. It's like, you got to be consistent with raising your children. You got to be consistent with your body. You got to be consistent with your nutrition. I'm not saying you have to be perfect, because I yell at my kids. I make mistakes. I will get into an argument with my wife. Like maybe you come in and the workout isn't 100%. Maybe it's 80%, right? Maybe it's just a stretch day. It doesn't matter. It's just, you gotta be there consistently. You gotta be doing this consistently. Because if you're not consistent with it, and you're all over the place, I think that causes a big disruption in your life. And it's something I tell people, like, you gotta clean your side of the street. Like, you gotta worry about your own, well, it goes to my kids and I can't work out. I'm like, it's a line I use, clean your side of the street. Like, you can't give me that excuse. You can't give me the excuse that, like, oh, well, my kids and my job, and I'm too busy. I'm like, yeah, but now you're a mental mess, and now you're gaining body fat. Now your health is diminishing. You put on 20 pounds. You're emotionally in a terrible place. Your energy level's terrible. You're getting sick more, right? Because you don't feel good about yourself. I said, you're a selfish person. They're like, what are you talking about? No, you are. You're a selfish person, because your priorities are all out of whack. And because you can't find the discipline to go in there and take a minimalistic approach and start focusing, even if it's for 10 minutes a day, all these other aspects in your life that are so important that you should be focused on are diminishing. And then they're like, well, that's an interesting way of putting it, right? Like, and I'm like, no, you gotta. And I always say my most important client over the last 25 years, it was myself. It was myself. I would never, ever, ever take on another client if it meant that I wasn't getting my own session in. Wouldn't do it. Never, never, never have done it. Never. So it's something where I realize that this is part of my survival by me going in there and giving myself that hour and a half, whatever it is, a little extra time to plan my meals. It's what allows me to work with the level of intensity that I can work with and feel good about myself. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's the first thing that came to mind.
It does. You cannot give what you do not have, right? Love it. That's a superb place to end it. Thank you, Don. Where can my listeners follow you online? Where's the best place for them to keep up with your shenanigans?
I appreciate DonSaladino.com. We got a great program that we're launching January 3rd, a fun challenge, and Don Saladino on my Instagram. You guys can DM me any questions. Such a pleasure meeting you.
Amazing.
Thank you for that bottle of sake.
All right, let me know how it goes down. You're very welcome, man. Very welcome. Thanks
Merry
for coming
Christmas.
on.
Have a great holiday.
Cheers, Don. Merry Christmas. Ciao.
As always, my 2-minute takeaways from today's show. Passion and purpose. Avoiding complacency, and then patience with the game plan. Whether that's hitting your fitness goals and getting in shape, or growing a business, the underlying principles are the same. There is a healthy, very healthy kind of impatience, that tempo, that bias for action in the micro, but patience in the macro. So how do you ensure you execute on that game plan? It's consistency. Consistency in all facets of your life. In Don's eyes, intensity may sound sexier, but it's daily consistency over several years that will get you the results that you want. Once again, I've noticed that obsession tends to be a necessary prerequisite for building anything of note. But being able to completely pivot a business model that he'd spent at least 15 years building and perfecting, only to have the pandemic turn it upside down, and then emerge even stronger than before, in an industry that thrives on face-to-face interaction, that's pretty special. That's pretty special. So ask yourself, be it COVID or something else, when adversity strikes again, and strike it will, how will you react? Will you throw up your hands and wail? Or will you learn some new skills and get to work? Remember to take care of your own business first. Clean your side of the street. It's only once you get your own house in order that you can begin to help and serve others. We didn't do a deep dive into the intricacies of his strength and conditioning philosophy. As always, this show is more about exploring how one's inner philosophy manifests itself in the outer world, through one's actions and behaviors. In that respect, I like to think we succeeded in getting a really good look at Don's mental fitness. If listening to Don has got you pumped up, ready to go smash your fitness goals, and it's pretty hard to leave a conversation with him not feeling more energized than before, then head over right now to donsaladino.com. There is a ton of free stuff you'll get access to right away with regards to workout plans, nutrition plans, and if you're up for it, you can sign up for one of his monthly challenges. It's all there for you. As the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but I can't make you drink. So that final step is up to you. Last but not least, after some much needed time to recharge with the family, over Christmas I am firmly back on the podcast trail, and I have lined up a very, very interesting entrepreneur and restaurateur for you. I love spending time with this guy. He's successful, but again, really good heart, and his journey has been anything but straightforward. So I'm excited to share his story with all of you. If you enjoyed the last hour, I'm very grateful for any 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. If that's where you're tuning in from, it takes 2 seconds, and it does actually really seem to help drive more listeners to the show. Until then, if you're listening on Castbox, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, please make sure you are subscribed. And you know I'm always appreciative of any comments or shares on your own social media. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care and much love.